Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into something absolutely massive. We are going to systematically unpack the Princess Heartline third batch grand reveal. If you follow youth culture, pop culture networks, or just find the strategic organization of global and national rosters interesting, you are going to love this case study. We're strictly looking at the data to understand exactly how this massive group was structured, tiered, and presented to the public. 168. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. That is the exact staggering number of Gen Z global and national members included in this single announcement. Putting together a roster of this size is a monumental task, and figuring out how to categorize them so people can actually digest the information, even harder. But as we'll see, the organizers broke these 168 individuals down into some very specific, deliberate groupings. So, where is all of this coming from? Well, the context is explicitly stated right in the source material. We are looking at the Gen Z for Princess Heartline third batch grand reveal video for the 20th Congress of the Philippines, backed by Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano and House Speaker Boji Dai. Now, to be absolutely clear, we are keeping things 100% impartial here. We aren't endorsing any political viewpoints or taking sides. We're just focusing purely on analyzing the structural breakdown of this massive youth roster, because it's incredibly fascinating to see how high-level legislative figures utilize heavily categorized Gen Z pop culture networks. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the 20th Congress Grand Reveal, move into the featured and main names, check out the official and extended rosters, dive into the legacy and final editions, and finally, wrap up with the favorites roster. Let's get into it. Section 1. The 20th Congress Grand Reveal. What's really wild about this is the foundation it sets. We aren't just looking at a random list of celebrities thrown together. This is a highly organized third iteration of a specific group, the Princess Heartline third batch. It boasts both a global and national scope, packing those 168 total members. And it frames this massive Gen Z pop culture roster directly within a national legislative context for the 20th Congress. It's a really bold intersection of youth influence and institutional framework. Moving right along to Section 2, featured and main names. All right, we're kicking things off with some absolute heavy hitters. Looking at the featured roster, it pulls massive mainstream visibility with names like Catherine Bernardo, Janela Salvador, Belle Mariano, and Ivana Alawi. These are incredibly established figures in the global and national spotlight. Then, in the main names category, it highlights slightly different but still incredibly potent Gen Z influencers and performers like AC Bonifacio, Jada Avanzado, and Zyril Manabat. It's a very clear strategy of leading with high-impact visibility right out of the gate. And honestly, the sheer volume of recognizable talent just keeps going. We see incredible star power continuing on the featured side with Jane DeLeon, Liza Soberano, and Julia Beretta. Meanwhile, the main name side features figures commanding massive Gen Z audiences like Andrea Berlantis and Sofia Pablo. Just between these two groups, we've already accounted for the first 48 names across the core tiers. The organizational effort to align this level of talent into two cohesive blocks is just staggering. That brings us to Section 3, official and extended rosters. So, here's where we see a really crucial conceptual shift. We're moving away from the high-profile headline names, our core focus, and expanding outward. The official and extended rosters represent a deliberate peripheral expansion. This ensures the roster is touching various niches, different fan bases, and regional demographics. It's about casting a much wider net. Now we're looking at the complete official list, which adds another 24 essential figures to the global and national initiative. When you read through these groupings, spanning from Eliza Borromeo, Raika Lim, and Maxine Trinidad, down to Atasha Molek, Yuki Takahashi, and Kaori Oenuma, you see a really cool mix of rising stars, digital creators, and emerging mainstream talent. Giving it the title official list definitely grounds this specific tier with a sense of formalized importance within the wider batch. Right on the heels of that is the extended roster, which rapidly broadens the youth representation even further. Notice names here like Angelina Cruz, Nancy Jewel McDonough, Angie Salvacion, and Yesebel Arteaga. The extended title suggests that the organizers realized they needed to capture diverse spheres of influence that perhaps didn't quite fit into the initial main or official parameters, but were absolutely vital for hitting that sweeping 168-member goal. Next up, Section 4, Legacy and Final Editions. Now, this legacy roster is a super specific categorization. It ties an established network of Gen Z figures directly into this political reveal. We're talking names like Jillian Ward, Francine Diaz, Kendra Kramer, and Mika Lim. The word legacy carries a lot of weight, right? It implies a pre-existing or enduring presence in the cultural landscape. It suggests these 24 members bring a deeply rooted, trusted connection to their audiences. Then we hit the definitive-sounding final roster. This group acts as the capstone for the formal structural classifications, bringing in everyone from Sia Vigor and Zia Dantes to Miles of Campo and Lexi Gonzalez. By this point in the structure, the grand reveal has successfully sorted 144 individuals into 6 highly distinct buckets of influence. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. And finally, Section 5, the favorites roster. But wait, there is actually a fascinating narrative twist at the very end of this massive organization. This final categorization totally shifts gears away from formal titles like official or extended into a surprisingly personal, curated list within a legislative youth endorsement. Calling it My Favorites roster essentially breaks the fourth wall of the otherwise institutional framing. It definitely makes you wonder, whose favorites are these exactly? Structurally, though, it highlights one final, curated group of 24 individuals. Take a close look at these final 24 names rounding out the total 168 global and national members. This favorites list absolutely does not hold back on star power either, grouping together the likes of Zephany Demaranon, Gabby Garcia, Juliana Gomez, Cassie Legaspi, Kailine Alcantara, and Zaina Paraki. It's a dense, high-impact final bracket that ensures this massive list ends on a punchy, personalized note instead of just trailing off. Wow, okay, we've just navigated an absolute labyrinth of youth influence. After digesting all 7 layers of this grand reveal for the 20th Congress, from the featured headliners all the way down to that subjective favorites list, which of these meticulously organized Gen Z icons actually caught your eye? But more importantly, as we look at this absolute masterclass in roster structuring, it forces us to ask a larger question. Is this hyper-categorized, influencer-driven approach the new blueprint for how political institutions will capture the attention of national audiences moving forward? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how the information around you is organized.